Hello everyone, welcome back to GGN. This is part 2 for this news report for today. It's Wednesday, May 29th, 2013. I'm Darko, and I'm ready to go here. We're going to cover the war on terror, liberty, sovereignty, mostly focused on the United States. The U.S. government fears its own population. The government of the United States fears the population of its own country because it represents different interests than those of the American people, says Joe Losbaker, a member of the Committee to Stop FBI Repression. It says the FBI is a political force and the government fears the population of its own country. They are right to be afraid, of course, because they are serving the different interests than ours. I don't know exactly what he's saying, but he's saying that they are serving only the interests of the 1%, not the 99%. However, as long as American activists are organizing in their anti-war communities and unions, they can exude far greater power than the FBI. And yeah, so like people that are anti-war, they'll be lumped in with Muslim extremists. That's how they see those type groups. I'm going to read a comment here. This is completely wrong. In a democracy, the government fears the population because they can remove them from power. However, in an undemocratic country, the people fear the government because the government can do whatever they want, like surveillance, like he was using that as an example. It says America's a police state. If you look at their laws and look how they deal with their protesters, how they torture people, how their police are armed, how their police shoot to kill. Poll says majority view today's federal government as too powerful. A majority of Americans said they believe the federal government today wields too much power. 54% that expressed that belief, however, is only slightly higher than reported in 2012, slightly lower than reported in 2010 and 2011. Lastly, 46% of Americans said they agreed with the statement that the federal government poses an immediate threat to the rights and freedoms of ordinary citizens, with 53% disagreeing. High school teacher discipline for reminding students about the Fifth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution before taking behavioral survey. So Illinois high school teachers, fans are rallying to support him as he faces possible discipline for advising students of their constitutional rights before taking a school survey on their behavior. So it says here they've been collecting signatures on an online petition, passing the word on Facebook, sending letters to the school board. Students and parents have praised his ability to interest reluctant students in history and current affairs. So it says here the issue that he raised was whether school officials considered that students could incriminate themselves with their answers to the survey that included questions about drug and alcohol use. The survey is part of measuring how students meet the social, emotional learning standards set by the state. Meet the social, emotional learning standards set by the state. I guess that's, you have to be traumatized, right, to be indoctrinated. It is the first year Batavia has administered such a survey. School district officials declined to provide a copy of the survey to the Daily Herald, saying they bought it from a private company. Hopefully people see this. They ran corporations saying, oh, we should put drone bases over in India. And you see who's writing policy, these corporations that are owned by very few, the 1%, right? I don't think that they're really all that afraid of us. The military is, in a sense, and the police are all they're all employees of the monetary system, which is run by these by the 1% or whatever. And when you talk about how the federal government is too powerful, we're talking about the 1%'s control, right? The federal government completely represents globalism, and it does not represent a balance of power. It represents the ability for a select few to basically to dominate. I mean, if we had a confederation of states, each state would be a country, but the federal government just basically squashes that, and that's because they don't want the globalists don't want individual states to have power. In my personal opinion, I think that's what the whole revolution was about, the American Revolution. Why you had so many Freemasons there in the beginning setting it up. German finance minister warns of revolution. So he warned on Tuesday that unless Europe wins the battle against youth unemployment, revolution is a distinct possibility. Graduates in Spain are turning 30 without ever having a job, they said here. The social spillover is evidenced by the riots in Stockholm. So it's like that in Greece too. Youth unemployment in Spain real high. We are now 1 year away from global riots, complex systems theorist says. So it says if there's a single factor that reliably sparks social unrest, it's food becoming too scarce or too expensive, so argues a group of complex systems theorists in Cambridge. So it says the 2011 paper unveiled why the waves of unrest that swept the world in 2011 crashed when they did. The number one deterrent was soaring food prices. Their model identified a precise threshold for global food prices that, if breached, would lead to worldwide unrest. They did the same thing with gasoline, too. I've mentioned that. I think it was, what, $5? $6? Actually, that was probably the big cause of the Arab Spring, too. See, again, they control the monetary system. They use it for their advantage. They use money as a system of control, right? They used diversity and human rights as a way to gain political control. So, they wanted to get an Arab Spring, people protesting against, quote, dictatorships. Well, they just start starving them, and then they start rioting, and then Al Jazeera goes on and says, they're calling for they want democracy. Well, let's give them American corporatocracy, right? Call it democracy. Rand Paul, how I say is an outspoken Zionist, says here Obama losing moral authority to lead. So now all of a sudden he's getting on the side of, quote, libertarians and government folks, revolutionists. Will he be the leader if there is a revolution, a controlled revolution? He's all for Israel first. He is for using drones and stuff. So Adam Kokesh's planned July 4th open carry march appears to be a honeypot of controlled opposition. So it goes on there, says anyone that followed the articles in the last several years, you will already know that have been highly critical of various figures of the so-called alternative media and patriot movement. Many of these people associated with these groups are paid shills, gatekeepers, useful idiots, scam artists. It says it goes on here and it says that important topics that don't fit the controlled opposition narrative surrounding any number of subjects, such as criticism of the Abrahamic religions and Zionism, are often marginalized or ignored. Says here that many of these people are a part of a controlled opposition front which would eventually be used to start a civil war or at least provide a pretext for a militarized crackdown by the government. With that in mind, the whole narrative surrounding Adam Kokesh and his planned 4th of July open carry march on Washington, D.C. and other state capitol buildings has been of great concern to him. Says here the plan is for Kokesh and his supporters to march towards these capitol buildings while openly carrying firearms. In D.C., you are not allowed to openly carry firearms unless you are wearing a goofy blue uniform and hold a badge, because the people running that city hate freedom. So it says as a result, the potential for a violent confrontation or a staged event to demonize gun owners, patriots, and others is highly probable if this march goes on as planned. This is not me saying this. I'm just reading it. So, there's a lot of people that believe what he's doing is good and right, and that's cool. So, but I'm just trying to, broaden people's horizons, give maybe the bigger picture to see the possibilities of what's going on here. Each time this man has been arrested, the incident appears to be the product of staged theatrics. Recently, he was arrested in Philadelphia. It says it's puzzling because there was no legitimate reason for him to be specifically arrested. It was almost as if his arrest was pre-planned, despite the fact that he'd been used by the alternative media to highlight government tyranny. Law-abiding gun owners treated like terrorists at rally. They said he's taken down the video that after some respectable individuals dressed in military gear contacted him to let him know that one of his sources was a bit off. And that some of the individuals in the first part of the video were there in support of the rally. I've taken down the video out of respect for these men who support the Second Amendment as I do. Since the topic of the piece at large is still valid, and there was exceptional presence of police in plainclothes and uniform, Homeland Security, K-9, and others. So he's talking about recently cover the march against Monsanto protests in Philadelphia. I guess that's where Oblake got arrested. But he was surprised to see a peaceful gun rally across the street in downtown Philadelphia, but he was more surprised to see the Army, police, military, K-9 squads, and plainclothes officers that were surrounding the gun rally. That's why gun owners are being treated like terrorists is exactly the same as the now admitted IRS attack on Constitution-based groups and those who identify themselves as conservatives. There's a real, very real attack on the Second Amendment and those who utilize and support it. So, well, there you go. it's setting up a recipe for disaster, in my opinion. High school security guard arrested for threatening to shoot up school. It says a man was arrested earlier this week for a terrorist threat against a high school where he was employed as a security officer. He said he was going to go home, get his guns, and blow the place up after facing disciplinary action from school officials. Kindergartner given detention for bringing this tiny Lego figure gun on school bus. So the 6-year-old sparked an uproar at his school when he was spotted brandishing a tiny plastic Lego gun on the school bus. It was when another student saw the toy, he overreacted and alerted the driver. The driver said he caused quite a disturbance on the bus and that the children were traumatized. The child has been forced to write a letter of apology to the bus driver. He was also given detention Tuesday and could be temporarily stripped of his busing privileges. Illinois House approves bill on concealed guns. So the House of Representatives has approved a bill that allows residents to carry concealed guns amid rising gun violence in the U.S. So, of course, they threw that on the end. Press TV is a real anti-gun for some reason. But, yeah, Quinn, he's another douche like Rahm Emanuel or Blagojevich. He says here that the legislation is wrong for Illinois. We need strong gun laws that protect the people of our state instead of the measures puts public safety at risk. So remember, Chicago right now is breaking records for murders and violence. So, it's unbelievable he can make a statement like that. But that's good. That's good for Illinois. American students in Texas can keep guns in their cars with proper licenses when they are staying on college campuses, according to a new bill approved by lawmakers. Fort Worth PD guns down senior citizen in his own driveway. A man reportedly shot by police 5 times attempting to help a neighbor he likely thought was in distress. 2 police officers in Fort Worth are claiming the reason they gunned down the 72-year-old man in his own driveway was because they felt threatened. In other words, they were threatened by a slave or a citizen holding a gun trying to defend themselves. And another U.S. shooting, gunman kills 1, injures 5 in Texas prison town. The shooter, only identified as 23-year-old from North Carolina, was eventually killed in a shootout with local law enforcement officers after driving around and randomly targeting people at multiple scenes. Police authorities recovered an assault rifle, a handgun, and hundreds of rounds of ammunition from the shooting suspect. They identified him as a 23-year-old from the state of North Carolina. It says here he was recovered an assault rifle, a handgun, and hundreds of rounds of ammunition from the shooting suspect. He was killed while basically confronting officers. But this is the story. It's revealed decorated U.S. Marine who killed a woman and wounded 5 in random Texas shooting spree stabbed his wife to death in North Carolina motel 1,500 miles away. He was stationed at Camp Lejeune. Mother shocked by son's implication in slayings. So the mother of the Marine killed after a bloody rampage in Texas that left 1 person dead and several wounded says her son was a very bright, quiet, calm man. Speaking in Spanish, she said her son was okay, but he went crazy all of a sudden. He had done 2 tours in Afghanistan, I believe. U.S. military suicides hitting record. So number of American troops committing suicide has increased to nearly 2 a day, with experts beginning to take notice of its effect. Experts predict the military suicide rate to increase in the next couple of years as more troops are returning from Afghanistan. U.S. man shoots daughter with 3 kids at home. The man shot his 2 adult daughters, killing 1 and critically injuring the other before apparently taking his own life. So he was 63 years old, Anthony Alvarez. And I still have more articles, almost like 14 articles. So I'm just going to make that in or put that into a 3rd video. So we'll probably have about 4 videos today. So this is pretty much the end here. Please join me in part 3. This is GGN. I'm Darko. Thank you.